Presentation tonight on bilingualism and its impact on education. So, just a quick little overview of bilingualism. It has to do with the concept of being fluent in two languages. Bilingualism is becoming more and more common in our world today, and there are many components that are very significant. As you can see to the right of the screen is a quick table of contents of what we're going to be discussing tonight. So, before we watch this TED Talk on the benefits of a bilingual brain, it's important to note that studies show that there are several long term effects on the brain when it comes to bilingualism. One of the main things is that it promotes better judgment and decision making, as well as show that it's easier to multitask due to easier attention to detail and processing. It also will prevent some negative effects of disease as well as possible brain injuries. So here is the TED Talk.
Hablas español? Parlez-vous français? 你会说中文吗? If you answered sí, oui, or 会, and you're watching this in English, chances are you belong to the world's bilingual and multilingual majority. And besides having an easier time traveling or watching movies without subtitles, knowing two or more languages means that your brain may actually look and work differently than those of your monolingual friends. So, what does it really mean to know a language? Language ability is typically measured in two active parts, speaking and writing, and two passive parts, listening and reading. While a balanced bilingual has near equal abilities across the board in two languages, most bilinguals around the world know and use their languages in varying proportions. And depending on their situation and how they acquired each language, they can be classified into three general types. For example, let's take Gabriella, whose family immigrates to the US from Peru when she's 2 years old. As a compound bilingual, Gabriella develops two linguistic codes simultaneously, with a single set of concepts, learning both English and Spanish as she begins to process the world around her. Her teenage brother, on the other hand, might be a coordinate bilingual, working with two sets of concepts, learning English in school while continuing to speak Spanish at home and with friends. Finally, Gabriella's parents are likely to be subordinate bilinguals, who learn a secondary language by filtering it through their primary language. Because all types of bilingual people can become fully proficient in a language, regardless of accent or pronunciation, the difference may not be apparent to a casual observer. But recent advances in brain imaging technology have given neurolinguists a glimpse into how specific aspects of language learning affect the bilingual brain. It's well known that the brain's left hemisphere is more dominant in analytical and logical processes, while the right hemisphere is more active in emotional and social ones, though this is a matter of degree, not an absolute split. The fact that language involves both types of functions, while lateralization develops gradually with age, has led to the critical period hypothesis. According to this theory, children learn languages more easily because the plasticity of their developing brains lets them use both hemispheres in language acquisition, while in most adults, language is lateralized to one hemisphere, usually the left. If this is true, learning a language in childhood may give you a more holistic grasp of its social and emotional contexts. Conversely, recent research showed that people who learned a second language in adulthood exhibit less emotional bias and a more rational approach when confronting problems in the second language than in their native one. But regardless of when you acquire additional languages, being multilingual gives your brain some remarkable advantages. Some of these are even visible, such as higher density of the gray matter that contains most of your brain's neurons and synapses, and more activity in certain regions when engaging a second language. The heightened workout a bilingual brain receives throughout its life can also help delay the onset of diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia by as much as 5 years. The idea of major cognitive benefits to bilingualism may seem intuitive now, but it would have surprised earlier experts. Before the 1960s, bilingualism was considered a handicap that slowed a child's development by forcing them to spend too much energy distinguishing between languages, a view based largely on flawed studies. And while a more recent study did show that reaction times and errors increase for some bilingual students in cross-language tests, it also showed that the effort and attention needed to switch between languages triggered more activity in, and potentially strengthened, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. This is the part of the brain that plays a large role in executive function, problem solving, switching between tasks, and focusing while filtering out irrelevant information. So, while bilingualism may not necessarily make you smarter, it does make your brain more healthy, complex, and actively engaged. And even if you didn't have the good fortune of learning a second language as a child, it's never too late to do yourself a favor and make the linguistic leap from hello to hola, bonjour, or ni haos. Because when it comes to our brains, a little exercise can go a long way.
So, something else to know is that academic performance and bilingualism are positively correlated. Studies show that cognitive and sensory processing improves learning by creating a better environment. Similar to what was discussed on the previous slide, students become more attentive to details, thus showing more confidence, motivation, dedication, and determination. The way to continue this improvement would be to focus on literacy and even other subjects such as mathematics inside and outside of the classroom, in not just the student's first language, but also their second language. So, in terms of promoting math at home, the easier ways to promote math at home would be to create handheld manipulatives, things that students are able to use to promote hands-on learning. One of the easiest strategies to create a manipulative would be to make a flip book. An example could be focusing on place value, where you focus on place value in English and in Spanish. So, some of the most important areas in literacy and language include phonemic awareness, fluency, syllables, alphabetic principles, spelling, writing, etc. And in terms of language and literacy, these two areas help build the foundation for growth, not only academically, but also linguistically and cognitively. So, the best way to support bilingual literacy is through implementing different strategies. To the left here, I have a preview of a Google site with a ton of resources that you can use inside and outside of the classroom. So for this next slide, it will be showing a preview of a website that focuses on Spanish literacy resources. It's important to note that both of these sites can be implemented for either language. Notice how for this resource, as you can see, it is very helpful for students that are struggling readers because it provides images to help them better understand what they're reading. There are also different settings to help either make the pictures bigger or even lessen what students are seeing. Employment is also a big component of bilingualism that should be recognized. Many jobs today now promote bilingualism. For example, many stores and restaurants now have employees that speak two or more languages, which can be a big help for customers that may not know any English or know little English. This helps break the gap and prevent language barriers. In addition, by being bilingual, there are more potential job opportunities, which is because of your ability to be able to converse with others who may not know a lot of English. One of the most common things that is seen today in restaurants or stores is the phrase se habla español, which means Spanish is spoken here. This helps Spanish speakers who don't know a lot of English because it tells them that there is a worker that can work with them depending on where they're going, such as going to the grocery store and having a question about where a certain food item is. In terms of relationships, it's very important to constantly be working on relationships with others. It's important to better relationships not only through communication, but also through outreach and getting involved. There are several ways to get involved in the school, but some of the more common ones include going to back to school night, attending school sanctioned events, joining the parent teacher association, maybe volunteering in your student's classroom, or even chaperoning on a field trip. So, where do you go from here? Many schools now promote dual immersion programs or heritage language programs. Pretty much with dual immersion, there's two different models, but the idea is that the focus is going to be on the target language and you're trying to learn two languages sequentially at the same time, essentially. For more information about these bilingual education models and what may be the best fit for your child or children, please reference the following brochure given at the end of this presentation by either scanning the QR code or grabbing one on your way out. Thank you so much for your time.